The peaceful Seoul metropolitan city suddenly gets blasted by an enemy out of nowhere. The whole city instantly changes and falls into chaos and destruction, with more and more blasts hitting the country. Everyone remembers it as the day the world came to an end. 3 years before the blasts, the protagonist of our story, Yu Park, makes a genius decision and begins preparing for the chaotic world. Topics like the world's end or the apocalypse are pretty normal 3 years ago, but nobody besides two people takes things seriously. The first ones are, of course, the filthy rich, and the others are just paranoid people with delusions who decide to prepare with everything they have. People detached from reality. Our boy is one of them. Yu sells everything and tirelessly gathers information so he can survive the apocalypse. His first mission is to decide the perfect place for his bunker. After research, he learns about 3 conditions. The first one is to build it in a place secluded from traffic but still near a city. The second condition is to have a terrain that would be useful to protect the place if someone tries to attack. The last condition is his price. Yu has a tight budget for all of this. In the end, he chooses a location near the Air Force on Seoul's outskirts. Our boy meets an old farmer who's now his new neighbor. He doesn't remember the old man properly, but he's sure the guy's last name is Kim. After choosing a good location, he wastes no time and gathers a crew to work with. He shows the prepared equipment and joins them in the work. At first, they're all a bit annoyed, but after sharing a few drinks, things start looking better. One day, the old man stops them from drinking and gives them a scolding for their behavior. The crew members get angry while Yu wonders if the farmer always looks so angry. The same thing happens again, but the crew members lose their patience and start bullying the poor old man. Yu stops them and with a serious expression, lets everyone know that he can handle the matter alone. Yu's patience slowly fades until one day, he sees a guy, Kim's son, arguing with the old man over some land. The farmer refuses, but his son only gets angrier and keeps bringing up the past. He grabs the old man and slams him on the ground while our protagonist silently observes everything. Kim's greedy son can't wait any longer, so he tries forcing his father through brute force, but Yu stops him in time. The scumbag leaves his old man alone and threatens him to give up on the land before leaving. The farmer gets silent for a while, and our boy offers him a cig. They both have a chat. Yu shares that his parents died in an accident. He suggests the old man should give up on his land, but the farmer explains he had no idea the land he gave to his daughter would turn valuable because of some road construction. He rejects the idea of selling it as he has many memories of his beloved wife in this place. Yu doesn't understand it even now, but just a short conversation opens the stubborn old man's heart. Since that day, he never gets in their way. Yu loves him from time to time, but one day, the catastrophe finally begins. Huge blasts take away the city's peace in mere seconds. The terrifying sirens announce the end of the world. The farmer finds Yu and begs him to locate his own son. The protagonist tries and learns that the son is already gone. Yu suggests the old man should just get inside the bunker as it is too dangerous, but the stubborn farmer declines the offer. The turmoil begins out of nowhere. Yu knows one thing is certain: the survivors, desperate to live another day, are all his enemies. After spending a few days searching for animals with the old man, Yu learns that the old man is unexpectedly part of the defense force. Yu sees weapons in the farmer's hands, but he is determined to loot the nearby Air Force base once the turmoil begins. At some point, both Korean and American soldiers were stationed here, but currently, trackers capable of eliminating monsters are occupying the area. Yu believes it's the best place to store weapons, so he decides to wait until the conflict begins, since he's sure the bases near Jaeongi are definitely going to be targeted. Once a blast happens, he can wear a protective suit and swing by later to loot everything useful. Just when our boy is hoping for an opportunity, a surprising offer comes out of nowhere. Wong-soo Kim is the guy who makes the offer. Yu remembers his small talks with the guy. Wong-soo is someone from the syndicate whom Yu hired during the construction work. Before the chaos, Wong-soo shared that monsters have been invading the castles in Mongolia, as well, taking millions of lives daily. Wong-soo suggests that since the bunker is already finished, Yu should start focusing on collecting weapons. Our boy finds the guy suspicious but decides to take his offer and promises he will check out the weapons once the construction is fully finished. He has no reason to break the deal, but before doing any transactions with the guy, he looks into him and learns that he isn't just an ordinary syndicate member, but a part of the mainland organizations. Wong-soo is using his connections to bring in all the weaponry. After meeting with the suspicious man, Wong-soo asks Yu to wait. The protagonist remains cautious around the guy while waiting for his men. Yu learns Wong-soo has a daughter as well. When the men finally show up with the weapons Yu asks for, he takes a good look at the weapons and checks them thoroughly while Wong-soo is busy talking to his men. The suspicious guy suddenly approaches Yu and with a terrifying gaze asks if Yu is really the only one living there. Our boy confirms it and questions if there's some kind of issue. Wang-Su changes his serious expression and assures there's nothing. Yu cracks a stupid joke and invites the guy to swing by sometimes if he needs a place to stay, but Wang-Su declines the offer, saying he's hoping to see his daughter after the job is over. The man gives Yu permission to check the weapons for the time being and assures that the mags and rounds will be delivered soon as well. Back then, Yu is sure he will never get to see the fatso again, but he suddenly gets a call from Wang-Su. Before the guy leaves for his home, he is hoping to secure a place and some weapons. He already knows Yu's location, which is why our boy becomes an easy target. Wang-Su charges towards the bunker with weapon and calls Yu out to get his delivery. Yu is grateful this first enemy comes all alone at the very least, and he decides to finish Wang-Su before he can call someone else. The protagonist confronts the guy, and they both charge toward each other to attack. After a few swings, Yu manages to land a hit and almost end his life. Seeing himself crumbling, Wang-Su is in disbelief. He begins begging pathetically, but Yu reminds him there's no chance he will survive. Wang-Su requests to be finished quickly after this, so Yu listens and finishes him off with a cold, expressionless face. He hears a call and wonders if there are more, but it's just Wang-Su's daughter. She is hoping her dad can come back quicker. He knows his emotions would just slow him down, so he ignores the texts and leaves. On the 29th day, once the energy release becomes life-threatening, he rushes toward the Air Force base and discovers a huge amount of weaponry he could arm an army with. He feels relieved as his plans work out perfectly. As he makes his way back, he wonders if Wang-Su had made a different choice back then. Were there any chances of him surviving in such a cruel, chaotic world? Could he finally see his daughter? Yu believes it to be impossible. Yu pulls out a YouTube tutorial and starts crafting a little wool doll. He listens to a YouTuber and follows all the instructions carefully. The video being played is actually made after the turmoil began. It's a tutorial uploaded on Viva Apocalypse, thanks to Melon Mask, the rich guy who developed Galaxy Link. Everyone still has the internet in the post-apocalyptic world. Yu tries his best with the doll, and thanks to Galaxy Link, people are still in touch with each other. The tutorial finally ends, but Yu becomes frustrated as his doll looks pathetic compared to the video. 365 days after the first blast, the blasts and air bombs are finally stopped, but a huge number of monsters are emerging now. The government has given up against them, and as things look, the old world can't be restored. Many concerns about the refugees are coming to the surface. At the same time, for some reason, many users are going offline for a suspiciously long time. The caution toward the refugees doesn't take long to turn into hatred and anger. Yu believes such reactions are to be expected in a chaotic world. Yu remembers blocking a user named Defender, a guy known as the Human Eliminator within the online community. Soon after the war, the crazy scumbag began uploading his victims online just so no one dares enter his territory. When Yu unblocked his account, he went through the guy's posts and became sure that Defender's an addicted psycho. Watching such a crazy guy post his victims made everyone terrified. Around this time, Yu's favorite user, the Toymaker, was also added to the list of offline users. Our boy tries reaching out to him, but it's useless. The internet is mostly filled with offline members at this point. Yu has no choice but to detach himself from everything in order to survive. There's no knowing who will die next. Not even Yu's survival is certain. During his Sinnoh Blizzard, the protagonist sees a few men approaching his bunker. They are the same guys who helped with the construction. Yu quickly assumes they are all raiders who have come to pay him a visit. He wastes no time preparing for the confrontation and pulls out his weapon. Outside, the men make sure they are at the right place. One of them is certain it's a bunker, but they all get surprised to see the doors completely open. A few of them head inside to check if anyone is there. They step in with shields and weapons. They find a few cigarettes but remain cautious as the whole situation looks suspicious. One of them checks the smell to make sure there's no corpse inside. They decide to check all the corners, but while they're looking elsewhere, our protagonist jumps down and instantly finishes one goon while dodging the bullets at the same time. With terrifying eyes, Yu moves forward to defeat another one. The goon begs, but Yu shows no mercy and wrecks the second guy. The men standing outside keep yelling, but they get no answers. Yu remains calm and waits for another opportunity to attack. A goon decides to head inside despite all the warnings. The chief stops him and suggests they should use harmful gas first, but our boy hears their plan. He shuts the doors closed and stops them from throwing anything inside. The chief believes they should look for the ventilation, sure that there's only one entrance since he built the bunker himself. Inside, Yu grabs his gun and finds it funny, as he was never expecting to get dragged into the game of life and death. He feels pity for the group outside since no one knows that once the construction was over, Yu used whatever he learned to expand the bunker all by himself. He doubts they can predict this. Yu comes out from a different exit with a cold, expressionless face, ready to eliminate the whole group. He sneaks in from behind, and as soon as one of them tries throwing in another gas bomb, Yu starts firing his rounds and finishes the 2 men without showing any mercy. The chief begs for his life and quickly surrenders, so our boy stops and asks if there are any other men left. The chief reveals he's the only one left. He becomes terrified and promises he's telling the truth. Yu and Isim carry the bodies back to his truck. While he observes everything, his eyes widen as soon as he sees the same doll he saw in the tutorial. Yu smacks the chief with his gun and orders him to reveal if he's the one who eliminated the YouTuber. Hang clarifies he wasn't, but Yu unforgivingly hits him and demands to know everything. The chief spits out everything to save his life and explains the guy was already dead when they found him. Yu orders the chief to take him there, and after a 30-minute drive, he finds the YouTuber's body. As soon as he lays eyes on it, the protagonist remembers the video he saw and becomes certain Defender is the one behind his elimination. Yu recalls seeing a post. Lifeless bodies hold a lot of information. He gets a flashback. Someone asked if he was able to learn anything useful. Yu, dressed as some kind of agent, explained that lifeless bodies can be used to gather all sorts of information, but the ones he found had been fading away, so he couldn't learn much. He called it alright as he saw a huge number of lifeless bodies he could use to gather information and learn the victims' perspectives of their end. At present, the chief begs for his life and asks permission to leave, but Yu remains selfish. He points his weapon towards the man, but Hang makes pathetic excuses, pointing out that he even has little kids to feed. Yu clears the misunderstanding and reveals he was already planning on finishing anyone who knew about his bunker. The excuse he's using is getting old now. He deals with the chief before leaving. On a sunny day, our boy comes out of his bunker and decides to forget about all the turmoil to enjoy the peaceful sunlight. But any kind of relaxation in such a world comes with a huge amount of risk. A drone suddenly appears and notices Yu's location. Some mysterious user named Dongtinmum, who's currently living in a huge building in southern Jiangsu province, notifies the survivors about his raids. Despite having no way to defend himself, the guy terrifies everyone by posting a script and announcing that he will deal with the nearby Dongtin area. A post for invaders, which was also made to frustrate the nearby Dongtin survivors, has useful information that helps the invaders get better. Yu's certain the invaders going around eliminating people probably have accounts on the forum. The information posted to save someone could also be used for rule-breaking activities. That day, every survivor learns one thing. Unless they can defend themselves, there's no chance they'll survive. Yu observes the posts and believes most people are choosing to work together in order to survive. The survivors keep coming up with new tactics to live another day. Yu feels like he's nothing like them. He knows humans are insanely selfish. Gathering into a group would just attract more attention towards them, and if a bigger force appears, they'll be done for. He believes using weapons should be the last option in order to stay hidden. With such a situation, Yu calls his location perfect since no wanderers ever appear around his place. It's filled with scary mutated dogs as well, so no humans will ever dare to step foot into his territory. Recently, news about zombies roaming around came to the surface, but the protagonist learns a survivor finished them off. Yu believes another important thing to know is that no enemies ever last forever. Somewhere else, a fatty checks his drone footage and becomes frustrated as he doesn't understand how the protagonist is hiding in such a place. He asks the group if they're sure it's the right place. The invaders orders Fatso to use the drone to confirm it again, as there's no way anyone's dumb enough to confuse the military base for something else. Fatty pulls out his drone again and hopes his efforts don't get wasted. He suddenly spots the sniper woman and starts getting cocky. The guy suggests they should all track her down first, but before he can finish his words, he sees his whole crew getting wrecked and losing their lives because of the mutant dogs. Fatso orders the driver to just begin moving as there's no saving the others anymore. Before they can escape, a lifeless body hits the car and breaks its windows. The terrifying dogs eat the last 2 men as well. News about the crew gets posted online 1 week after the incident. This show went down during a time when Dongtinmun's post was slowly losing its hype. Yu learns this went down somewhere nearby. He suddenly gets notified and checks to find out it's another stupid post uploaded by Dongtinmun. He begs for someone's help in it, but no one takes him seriously anymore since he's labeled an attention seeker because of his actions. The post turns out to be true, and a huge blast goes down somewhere near Guangzhou. Defender talks about it online. His post reveals he's also near the same area, but Yu forgets about this information for now and decides to focus on something much more important. He sees the sniper girl's picture and decides to look into who she is. Yu walks out so he can pay her a visit. Outside, the sniper almost finishes our boy, but he gets out of the way, and the round destroys a zombie. The area he's in right now is pretty close to his bunker, but he's annoyed to see a sniper appearing out of nowhere and occupying the location. He observes the round craters and realizes she instantly fired 2 rounds, which suggests she has no choice but to shoot. He believes such traits make her more annoying compared to a defender. The reason our boy came here is the woman's appearance. It's clear that she's an American soldier. During the conflict's beginning, the US stopped most of the blasts aimed at them to show they were the strongest, but it was all a facade. It didn't take long for the nation to call back all the overseas troops to focus on the huge number of monsters appearing out of nowhere. Hugh believes she might get in his way if she takes the Air Force base for herself and checks the place. He doesn't want to face any trained soldiers but remains ready to do so if needed, as he doesn't want anyone destroying his peaceful home. On day 481, Hugh spends some time observing the woman's behavior and learns she stops firing around this time, which means she's probably sleeping. He decides to check the building but finds the entrance blocked. He jumps through another building and infiltrates the second floor. He picks up his weapon and remains cautious, but after looking around, he finds no one inside. He keeps his guard up and slowly makes his way to the top floor, where the sniper spends her days. So far, he encounters no issues. The guy goes inside and finds her sleeping. He's relieved to see he can avoid a fight, but the woman appears from behind and orders him to throw away his weapon. Hugh is surprised to see she was prepared. Judging from her voice, he becomes certain she's the same girl he saw before. She repeats her words, but the protagonist easily deduces she has a long barrel weapon. He calls her careless and instantly turns back to subdue her. The sniper tries firing, but Hugh manages to dodge and land a hit. She falls to the ground, but still tries reaching for her weapon. Hugh steps on her and apologizes. He reveals that he was just hoping to see how many people were up here. However, before climbing to the top floor, he saw the weapon storage, which could have become a huge problem if invaders got their hands on it. Hugh believes she made a mistake by gathering so much attention since she's trying to survive. He blames it all on her and almost finishes her, but the woman shouts at someone to keep her eyes closed. Hugh becomes cautious and points his weapons at the person, but it turns out to be a little child. The woman becomes frustrated and uses the last bit of her strength to push the protagonist. Hugh decides to end her life, but before he fires, the woman stops attacking and just rushes toward her kid to protect her. Hugh is shocked, as he was expecting her to use her sidearm, which could have surely increased her chances of living, but she still rushed toward her daughter. He finally accepts that his neighbor isn't some crazy psycho. She's a victim stuck in a foreign land who's just trying to protect her daughter. He thinks it's justified for her to use weapons over anything she sees. He disarms her and tries explaining that he will surely finish her if she ever enters his territory. He hopes she understood the message. The little child asks for some medicine. It turns out the woman has deep wounds on her legs, which is the reason her movements were so sloppy. He hands over the medicine and calls it even since he was the one who started their fight. The woman rejects the medicine and makes a weird expression as she asks him to give her some substances instead. Yu understands she can't take it anymore, but he reminds her that substances won't magically solve all the issues. Everyone would take them if that were true. He confirms if the child can speak Korean. Ever since that day, our boy pays them a visit from time to time and shares painkillers and powdered milk every time he goes. Yu has been hearing a lot more shots lately. He remembers how on edge she was the first time they met. Yu assumes these shots are not meant for invaders, but they're just signs of mental issues in that woman. While observing the area, he notices the mirror light and realizes she's asking to meet him through Morse code. Yu is there without wasting time. The child tells him her mother isn't looking well. After reaching the top, Yu is shocked to see her miserable state. The woman has surrounded herself with strange items she saw in her country. Instead of abusing substances, she finds peace in these American things. While Yu treats her leg wound, the woman reveals many invaders attack at night. Yu assumes she hasn't been treating her leg because the invaders have her completely restless. He sees the mother and daughter hugging each other. They both miss their old life and the peace they had. The woman feels so depressed that she can't hold back her tears. She demands substances again, but Yu declines her request and makes it clear that he's never letting her escape reality since it won't solve anything. He promises to reduce the problems they're facing instead, so he demands the weapons she's storing. Our protagonist picks a rainy day to fight the invaders just so he can be even, since he has no territorial advantage here. Rain's perfect for a surprise attack, so he wastes no time and throws the RPG towards the gathered men. He tries defeating most of them with just one attack, but a couple of men manage to survive the surprise assault. They'd all scream in terror and try to escape, but Yu unforgivingly shoots his rounds, and a lot more become lifeless. The men finally spot him, but Yu instantly vanishes, adding to their confusion. The invaders believe there are only a few, so their leader orders them to call all the men as he wants to deal with this before sunrise. The messenger tries running away but sees all his friends eliminated in front of him. His body freezes in fear as he sees the protagonist appear from the shadows. Yu calls the guy careless and begins complaining about the cold rain, so he moves forward to finish the job. After taking care of all the problems, Yu brings the lady and her daughter to his bunker. He watches a tutorial and tries fixing her wounds while the little kid checks the whole place like a curious little cat. Yu patches her up and becomes annoyed seeing the child go through his stuff. He followed whatever the video said, so he's sure she'll be alright. But seeing the woman's sad expressions, Yu doubts he can heal the wounds in her heart. He sees his laptop and suddenly gets an idea that might fix the sniper's heart. He invites her to take a look and explains it's Viva Apocalypse in English form. She asks if it's really connected to her home country. Yu confirms and asks her to take a look. She leaves a comment and starts laughing as she sees the other users trolling her. Time moves fast and Yu reaches the second Christmas after the first blast. Some guy created a tree decorating game that's becoming popular lately. His tree looks bland compared to the other famous users. Our boy smiles while reading the murder-related comments on Defender's tree. He notices the radio. The kid shares that her mother's sleeping right now, but she asks for the laptop because she wants to join the Americans in the New Year's countdown. The other day, Sniper thanked Yu after using his laptop. She introduced herself as Rebecca, and her daughter's name was Sue. Ever since that day, Yu has been in touch with them. He asked them to just call him Skeleton since his name can be pretty confusing. In the present, Yu agrees to let her have his laptop. Before he cuts the call, Sue says, "Merry Christmas" to him. Her words put a smile on his face. He says it back and ends the call, hoping they stay alive and well. His Christmas tree suddenly gets a comment, John Manhwa. Yu doesn't seem to look that happy seeing the name pop up. He doesn't understand why someone would associate this name with him. John's just a ghost now, but Yu's aware of him. Viva Apocalypse is a platform for people like Yu. As long as it's about the apocalypse, people can share whatever, whether it's legal or illegal. Many hidden users have added a lot to the platform, so it is said to be the largest forum. But at the beginning, Yu regretted spending his money on it, as he couldn't find anything useful. However, after researching for a while, he came across John's instructions on how to use decoy bunkers. Dummy bunkers are extremely useful for survival, and they can be combined with the main bunkers as well. Dummy bunkers can also be used to get close to your enemies, and one can plant traps if someone ever breaks in. Just a click, and the intruder will instantly lose his life. Yu goes through his useful posts and learns they both have a similar mindset, but John was just a few steps ahead. Our boy can't help but think what kind of guy John Ninon is. The mysterious guy soon gathers a huge amount of attention. His fans wonder about his real identity, so at the end, John responds with his ID card and reveals he is a hunter. Almost 10 years ago, weird phenomena known as fissures occurred in many parts of the world. It didn't take long for a huge number of monsters to pour out of these terrifying holes. The government soon established a new branch that would specialize in dealing with these monsters. These people are now known as the Monster Eliminators. Our boy remembers his old life. He grouped up with 3 Monster Eliminators and detected the monsters nearby, so he began their extermination, and they all dealt with the dangerous monsters effortlessly. In the present, Yu's aware that top-ranking hunters don't reveal any personal information. So, judging by John's ID card, he learns the guy isn't anywhere near that level. Yu admits that regardless of the ranks, John earned his respect by sharing insane knowledge that's comparable to some professionals. Before the conflict, John Ninon had a license which is often seen in TV shows. The guy didn't take long to reach the top, but the more attention someone gathers, the bigger the target they become. So the same happened to John. He made a few enemies as well. His down-bad haters used whatever means to attack John Ninon's posts, but their efforts were completely useless. Yu looks through the comments, certain that John would just ignore the hate, but he's shocked to see the guy respond to them with a mirror picture. The fans couldn't believe he revealed his identity so casually. Soon, the whole community changes instantly and begins hating instead. After his face comes to light, it doesn't take long for people to find out he's just an average D-rank hunter. Yu finds it pathetic but guesses it's John's choice. The man doesn't stop yet. He unexpectedly invites everyone to an offline meetup. 600 days before the apocalypse, John introduces himself to the 10 people who showed up, including Yu. He orders food for them but decides to avoid eating himself because of his cut. However, the waitress calls it against the restaurant's policies, so he has no choice but to order. Despite saying he's on a cut, the huge guy eats like a starving animal. It doesn't take long for the fans to start leaving. John begins talking about the war and explains a few things. But Yu is disappointed since his deductions are nothing special. John asks for his introductions, so the protagonist reveals his username and shares that he's having a hard time getting a fuel tank installed. John understands him, but Yu expects no help from a disappointing guy like John. To the surprise, the huge guy offers his help and assures Yu he can find someone. Our boy is surprised, but soon afterward, he's able to get a fuel tank installed, thanks to John. Despite his bad first impression, John manages to be useful. 401 days before the chaotic world, John is great at gathering people. Yu continues attending his stupid meetups, and the last one has 8 people. Yu stops seeing any pointing showing up, but out of nowhere, John requests to talk to him for a minute. Outside the shop, he asks the protagonist if he's a hunter by any chance. John is sure he has seen Yu somewhere before. Our boy is speechless for a second. He could easily lie his way out of it, but Yu unexpectedly answers with a yes. Before John can say anything else, the fans drag him away. The huge guy tries speaking with Yu, but a news reporter appears and asks if he has something more important than this. John fumbles under the pressure and goes with the flow. This is the last time Yu ever sees the man in real life. John's popularity keeps skyrocketing. He's introduced to Viva Apocalypse as well as a doomsday expert. The guy achieves insane success and uses his fame to establish a doomsday consulting firm for preparations. Viva Apocalypse helps him gain most of his success. He is certain the followers who worship him wholeheartedly believe he is the best, but everything changes within a few days. Someone accuses him of plagiarism, and the hate he receives is completely different from before. John's precious life falls apart. He receives endless amounts of hate comments and loses whatever he has achieved in life. The guy becomes the target of a witch tracker as well. Despite feeling extreme anger, instead of fighting the allegations, John posts something shocking, a comment that becomes legendary in the Viva Apocalypse community. It is a short reply filled with madness. Your mom. That's how John Nenan's downfall goes. In the present, Yu is aware that all the hate he used to get disappears ever since the blasts dropped, but he is still wondering why someone unknown is trying to connect his name with the guy. You can't help his curiosity. He assumes it might be a coincidence or the guy himself, so he texts Fox Games and asks if he knows anything about the message. Fox Games is a forward game developer who's now a hacker too. The hacker asks if Yu's curious. He is the same guy who produced the game, so Yu is sure he has an answer. He isn't aware, but his curiosity is about to cause something unexpected. The hacker asks if Yu knows anything about the name 180 centimeters. Our boy types that he has no idea about it. This interaction leads him toward a shocking meeting. Later, the protagonist plays the radio and makes sure he packs 30 days worth of food and supplies. He checks his weapons, and since it isn't going to take long for the city to be destroyed completely, Yu decides to use the opportunity and go see the city again. This is one of the reasons why he chooses to build a bunker here. He wears his usual clothes and thinks he can leave without worry since he solves all the nearby issues first. He thinks this is the perfect time, so he goes outside to see the ruined city. Almost 1.5 years after the first blast, Yu is able to make his way to Jibeul without any trouble, but he starts feeling weird seeing the mess left by all the conflicts. He also feels nostalgic for how the city used to be. A wave of sadness hits him. Seeing the pitiful surroundings as he looks at the survivors living in such pathetic conditions, Yu feels relieved he managed to live through such harsh days and survive. He notices 2 soldiers burning a few bodies inside an alley. Yu moves forward and reaches the National Committee for Overcoming the Crisis. A woman there guides him and explains that he needs to go to the other window if he's here to file any complaints about the crimes. But her eyes widen as she hears him demand a meeting with the director, Seinen Lee. Our protagonist shows some sort of card and shares that he is already aware that Seinen in charge of the disaster rescue. With a polite smile, he requests her to tell the director that Yu part from the military